You missing Shanks?
No, mate. He just texted me actually. Free for a chat, boy. I said, "Damn, mate, doing a proper pod."
Well, I did give him a text 3 weeks ago and he ignored me. He blanked me.
Yeah, that's what he's like. He's so arrogant, mate. When he was on 69 caps, he was all right, and he hit 70, he just changed. Yeah, we're looking forward to meeting up. So I've got a little house in Devon that I go to every summer with my kids and whatever, and I've been gagging to get down there, and it's not very nice, but I like it. But I just like being in Devon. It's my favourite place, really. And like Danny Grucock's a big mate of mine, and he lives down there, most of the year. So he's sort of down there waiting with a barbecue and a cider and a boat, a little dinghy ready, and it's like it's going to be awesome. Yeah. I'm trying to get Shanks and his kids down there as well, so we'll go on our own little holiday.
Get sunburned, won't he?
Oh, shocking, mate! Yeah, he's like see-through.
Well,
you can see through the bloke.
Well, when I put out that I was going to do an interview on the podcast, I must have had about 150, 200 questions for you. But I picked four, and I'm honest to God, on the Bath Supporters page, English Supporters page. And the main one that come from Mark Weldon, Ben Hayward, and Peter Waterhouse was, where did you get that bin bag of a jacket?
I get that a lot. There is a anyone that knows me will not be surprised. There is a story behind it. I think it's the coldest I've ever been. It was so cold in Newcastle, we couldn't do our links outside, couldn't speak. So it was like Beast of the East or whatever it was. So we had to go inside and film all our stuff, and which is problematic because people get in the fucking way. But he's hello, mum. Like, okay, dickhead, I'll start again now. One bloke at Wasps once, I actually lost my shit, and I said, mate, his mates were there and they're all on it, and he kept going in front of the camera. I said, mate, you got one more chance, okay? I said, I picked him up, didn't pick him up, I just moved him to the side. I said, mate, don't do it again. It's 3 times now. We're working. Please don't do it again. Shout and chip. Please don't walk in front of the camera. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So he did it again. So Durders is like the world's nicest man. And he was like, don't. I was like, right, mate. I said, one more chance, or I'm going to knock you out in front of your mates, okay? Security coming over. I said, I'm going to knock you out in front of your mates, okay? Then I'll finish my link and I'll go to prison. But I promise I'll do it. Don't fucking do it again. Durders was like, whoa. I was like, I will knock you out, okay? I'm not a violent guy, but you are now taking the piss and ruining our day. So anyway, I was so cold. The cameraman's like, you got to get one of these coats. And he had this Moncler coat. I've never heard of it. Never heard of Moncler in my life. And I said, send me the link, will you? So he sends it. I'm literally so cold. I was just like, 3XL, bang, buy. Truth be told, it was quite expensive. But I'm a bit of an arrogant prick, so get over it. People ask how much it cost. I reckon 5 times a day on Twitter, mate. It's relentless. Yeah. It cost a lot, all right? But I thought I could put it down as an expense for Channel 5. They said no. And I cut the label off by then, so I had to fucking pay for it. Anyway, 2 reasons I wear it all the time. One are that I paid for it, so I'm getting my money's worth. It wasn't a freebie. 2 is that when I got it, I had loads of mates around in the kitchen. The box arrived, and I'm just chatting with my mates and whatever. And I was like, oh, nice new coat I ordered. I was like, oh, it's wet. It's wet. I was like, oh, it's wet. It must have got wet in transit. Pulled it out. And I was like, it's dry. It's just shining. It looked wet, And they were like, that is fucking rank. That is hanging. You look hanging in that. It's rank, mate. You're pathetic. What a prick. I was just like, send it back. I was like, no. So I was basically rebelling against my mates because they all told me to send it back. And all all their wives and stuff, like, oh, mate, that's disgusting. That is rank. Your taste is horrendous. Wouldn't be seen dead in that. I said, well, fuck you. I'm keeping it. So I've worn it about twice a week since. I love it. I'll never let it go. Great jacket. It had its own Facebook account for a while. I got I got an email off Facebook, and it said, are you concerned you're linked to this thing? Do you regard this as effectively cyberbullying? That's what they said. There's so much abuse. Yeah. So my agent, I think as a bit of a joke, basically got in contact with Moncler and said, look, he gets all this attention. Because, it was relentless for months. Like, it was hundreds of tweets a day at points, and the same gags every time, mind. And still, everywhere I go, where's the jacket? Where's the bin liner? Where's the bin liner? Everywhere I go, you go to walk on the beach in Portugal. He's like, where's the bin liner? No one knows who I am. They just know the coat. When I was a rugby player, no one gave a shit about me. Like, yeah, so literally get it everywhere. And got it in Africa last year. I mean, it is relentless, the bin liner chat. But they basically got in touch and said, well, there is a huge amount of traffic actually for a non-influencer, for a normal guy sort of thing. Mm. But it seems to be primarily negative. So we're going to step away if you don't mind. Basically, a lot of people are talking about it, but they're all saying it's shit.
It's gone from where's Shanks to where's the jacket then?
Oh, I'll tell you what, where's Shanks? I get all the time. Where's bin liner? Where's Shanks? Bin liner. I just say Shanks is dead now, which is a little bit insensitive at the moment, so I might stop saying that. But one guy was in this pub in Twickenham, he was like, where's Shanks? And I was like, he's like, no, where is he? I was like, good one. And I was talking to this old school friend of mine I bumped into. He's like, where's Shanks? Where's Shanks? I said, he's dead, mate. Car crash on Tuesday. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah. So can you back off, mate? He was like, fella, I'm so sorry. Don't say fella. It reminds me of Shanks. I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was like, don't worry. Anyway, like, later that day, I got to get this tweet from this guy. You twat! You told me he was dead.
Well, on Shanks, Steve Newton asks whether Shanks outdrinks you on a regular basis, despite drinking us through a straw.
Yeah, Shanks could put a few pints away. Mind, if I'm on, I quite like a pint of. Luckily, Shanks and I do loads of stuff with Guinness, and that is our favourite beer. So we're quite lucky, really. Otherwise, you'd have to fake it. And so that's quite lucky. But if we're on a night and a sunny day or whatever, and we're drinking Guinness, I reckon that. I'm not a massive heavyweight drinker, to be honest. But you could do 10 Guinness and walk in a straight line. That's how I feel about it. It's just a meal. But 10 pints of lager and I'm ruined. So I think it depends what I'm drinking, really. But Shanks can do the whole lager thing and he can just crack on. And I'm like, no, I've got to limit that to 2 or 3 of those, really, then move on. Otherwise, I'm all over the place. I'm spewing out the back. Yeah. So, and I certainly, this necking stuff, I don't like it. I like a night out, and I've drunk more in lockdown than I've ever drunk in my life, but I'm not necking pints, mate. I'm a grown up. Do you know what
I mean? Richard Knight asks, can Bath do a Liverpool and win the league after so many years?
Well, anyone can win the league. Anyone can do it. I don't think what you do is you kind of look recent history. I mean, of course, the answer is yes. I mean, anyone could go and win it, as I said. But what you do is you look at sort of recent history, because 5 years ago means nothing now, really. You look at the last couple of seasons, and if a team hasn't won it, what you do is you search for tangible, sort of visible improvements, and where are they, and has anything moved backwards? And I guess, and it's all subjective, so we all think different things. I look at Bath and I think when they've had a bit of bad luck with injuries, all clubs have, but Bath losing Henry Thomas repeatedly, that's a bit of a killer. And these things make a difference. And I think for quite a long time, Chudley was unavailable, and the likes of Watson and Joseph just haven't, the last year or two, played a huge number of games for Bath, and these are top of the range players. Now, you're going to get injuries. That's the way it goes. Falatau's hardly played for Bath, really, and he's one of the best players on the planet. That's just bad luck. Underhill appears to be injury prone. Hopefully he's not. But, these are, apart from anything else, very highly paid players for a reason, because they're excellent, who haven't played very much. And that is just bad luck, really. What you can do is just sign loads more and rotate them by paying people in ways in which you shouldn't pay them, which is ultimately, I have a huge amount of love for Saracens, played over 100 games for Saracens and whatever. That is what Saracens did. So that's all right, because then Sam Underhill can rest 2 weeks a month, or can rest 1 week in 3, whatever it is. But actually it gets to the point now where you pay these guys so much dough. If Falatau's fit, Underhill's fit, they're playing, mate. There's no rest. You're playing. So there's a bit of that, but I think when Bath have got their first choice pack or close to it out, I think they are an excellent forward pack. I think they really are one of the best in the league. I think Beno Abano's come on hugely. I think Elliot Stook is a highly rated but underrated player. Obviously, the Underhills, these guys are, that Francois Lowe's finished now, of course, but Tom Ellis, I think, is a really valuable asset in that team. Probably underrated, not by Bath, by everyone else. but they have some excellent players in that forward pack. But I think elsewhere, I feel like Bath aren't yet sufficiently threatening over the course of a season or over the course of 80 minutes as a rule. Behind that, I think you, like a lot of teams, they lose a couple of first choice forwards. They're not quite the same force. That's everyone really, except the old model of Saracens, frankly. Chiefs as well. Chiefs seem to have players they can just rotate. They seem to coach to and condition to an extremely high standard. With what we think and we're reasonably confident is a legal squad in salary cap terms. They do an excellent job. I don't think anyone else quite manages to achieve that yet. Sale Sharks might get there with a much smaller squad, but with Bath, I think a good forward pack. But I think once it gets behind that, you've got some excellent players. But what you've got is, I think, you've got to, if you give away penalties against Bath, you're quite likely to lose the game. Because at 10, they have a very good goal kicker, and that's bloody handy. I mean, it's incredibly handy. But I sort of feel like they haven't quite nailed the 9, 10, 12 thing. It doesn't mean the players they've got aren't really good players and they're the wrong players. And maybe it's something tactical. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's how the ball is delivered from the forwards. Maybe how it's forwards combined with backs. Maybe there is a mechanism by which they can create, more fast ball. I don't know. But actually, you look at the players they have. So Joseph, Watson, Rocknadanguni, Thokana Singer, they've got these fabulous players out wide. And the reality is you barely see them. You barely hear from them. Now, Rocknadanguni is on the ball in hand with a millimetre of space. He can be undefendable. He can be unplayable. He's that good. So I think people think because he's very muscular and powerful that he's a huge guy. He's not a huge guy. He's a big guy. He's very well put together. He's obviously trains very hard. He's in great nick, but he's very powerful, very, very powerful, physically strong. I think top end, he might or might not be super fast. Who cares? But his footwork's beautiful. His acceleration's great. He was like cock of the dance a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah.
He looks in great nick. And when's the last time you heard his name? You don't hear from him. Thokana Singer, I know, has been injured. Well, the World Cup was injured, and he scored a couple of lovely tries for Bath. But you just weren't hearing his name that much. And I feel like they haven't nailed the manner in which, if it's game plan, coaching or personnel, not quite sure. They haven't nailed that whole releasing the 13s, 11s, 14s, 15s. They haven't nailed the outside channels at all. And I feel like almost the most dangerous they've looked in the 13 channel outwards is when Falatau's playing. And he causes damage down the flanks. I think he's almost the most dangerous ball carrier in those situations. And I just feel like they're paying a load of dough for those outside players. And they're not doing anything with them. That's too easy to say. They're not releasing them on the opposition in space regularly enough for me to challenge to win the title. That's what I think. So I think something needs to change at 9, 10, 12.
And you finished your career at Bath, obviously. And, is it fair to say that, people sort of know you better now for your work on TV rather than you as a rugby player?
Yeah. Because I wasn't a brilliant rugby player. Like, I was fine and I had quite a long career, got a few caps, but I wasn't special. Like, I feel like I was the guy that might have been special and wasn't. I was one of those guys. That's the way it goes. Like, I ran out of luck with injuries. I had some bad luck with injuries and I had some big ones that lasted a long time. And I had a couple of injuries that, being frank, were poorly managed by good people, but were poorly managed and went on for much longer than they should have done. And that's a real shame. So an injury that, I hurt my Achilles, I think, on the same weekend as Craig Dowd, who snapped his Achilles. He played 16 weeks later. It took me 20 months to get back fully fit. I had 4 operations. I was in a fucking wheelchair. My sister washing me in the shower. Like, and Craig Dowd's back playing. I'm like, he snapped his. So you're like, it was just, that's the way it went. That's the way it goes. Equally, I wasn't massively talented. Like, I had a lot of physical strength. I was up for it. Mentally, I didn't struggle and that kind of stuff. But you watch what the best guys do. Gethin, Jenkins, Mako's different because it's a new generation. But you look at Gethin and you think, well, I couldn't do that stuff. I train all day, every day. I'll train for the next 10 years and my lungs just aren't as big as that guy's lungs. Like, I'm just not made to do that. So I think, and then by the end, my shoulders were so fucked that I just felt fine, but I just couldn't lift my arm up to bind properly. So I ended up getting pinged a lot and fizzled out a bit. And I think, well, I'm over that. I couldn't give a toss. But I wasn't a special player. I'm not saying I'm a special commentator, but there are just far fewer of us and much more visible now. So, yeah, I mean, getting to the point now where people sort of forget I played. They know I play, but they don't think of me as an ex-rugby player. They think of me as a opinion giver, basically, a commentator. So that's fine. Doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. And were you inspired by your dad to get into rugby?
Yeah, my dad took me to the local club, usual story really. And my mum really wanted me to play. My dad played prop. All his career, he played prop, if you can call it a career. But yeah, we were the same, same build, same attitude, very similar people. And I loved it pretty much straight away. But in terms of the inspiration, people always ask, like, I know you haven't asked this, but people always assume that Jason Leonard was my hero. And it's like, well, that came later. Like, once I got to know Jason, that came later. But I didn't watch rugby for the scrums and the line-outs and the mauls. Like, I watched it because Chris Oatey was playing on the wing. That is literally what I watched. I love watching Wasp when he was playing, but I literally went to watch England because Chris Oatey, and then I love watching Roy Underwood, Guscott to a point, but really it was Oatey, Underwood. I used to love watching Jonathan Webb, Simon Hodgkinson. I love watching those guys, and I love watching old videos of Clive Woodward, believe it or not, and David Duckham was like my all-time favourite. So they were the players that made me love rugby, not the big fatties. Now I think you can watch a game and watch Mako and think, whoa, or watch Joe Moody at the moment playing in Super Rugby. You're like, whoa, these guys could sell tickets. But shit, the props I was watching weren't selling no tickets, mate. Do you know what I mean? It just, they were just animals. But Cooch maybe, Gareth Chilcott. But I mean, he was for a different reason. He was a great prop, but he was just fucking nails. That's why I loved him. But my favourite players were like Chris Oatey, Roy Underwood, David Duckham, Garen Jenkins. I know he's a hooker. In my younger days, I love playing against Garen and watching Garen Jenkins because I'm sure he's a lovely man, but he was a fucking psychopath. And it's almost like, it's like watching those like CCTV, like where it's called, like Brits Abroad type stuff or whatever. I don't know, like banged up, not, violence on CCTV. It's like, oh God, but there's something about it that's like, oh my God, that's what it's like playing against Garen Jenkins. That's what it was like. It was like, am I in a documentary about blokes, like the most aggressive human beings in the world? And after the game, he is like the nicest man. Like Jonathan Humphreys was the same. Welsh hooker, just the most competitive, fierce bloke you've ever met, and the best guy. Like, so I used to find that fascinating. How there were such good blokes.
And didn't you come through at Saracens when you were 18? Yeah.
So I left school in London at 18, went straight to Sarries, and again it was luck, and it wasn't like because I wasn't. And this isn't false modesty. I was not an amazing player. Like my catching and passing was shite. My fitness, I trained my arse off, and my fitness was just shite. I was never quick, really, and I was, but I was strong. I was reasonably aggressive. Really, I was just fucking strong, and that's not showing off because that's natural. And there are stronger people around than me. But at 18, I left school, went to pre-season at Saracens, was at the back in all the fitness tests, and then we did live scrums. And I'm against British Lions and seasoned pros and internationals and not struggling. And the coaches were like, holy shit. So was I. I was terrified. Like my dad drove me to training. I was scrummaging against Paul Wallace the year after he was on the Lions tour. This is the world's best tight head. I bashed in. He worked a bit of an angle, which I hadn't seen before because I only scrummaged against people my own age. Never played a game of men's rugby yet. And then the hooker said to me, George Shooter was my hooker that day. And he goes, mate, what you got to do is get your right shoulder out, knock him back out and just keep him square. I was like, okay, didn't know what that meant. I was like, yeah, cool, I'll come with you, mate. I was like, all right, cool, nice one, cheers, George. And like, bang, then I'm like, shit, I'm fine. And then the next guy comes in and it's like, I'm fine. And George was like, fucking do it, don't just hold it steady. So I was like, I went for it and ended up, without being too much of a prick, fucking smash into bits and then into international tight head. And I was 18 and I was just out of school and they were like, who the fuck is this?
The next Ellis Genge.
Well, now that's really all I had. Like Ellis Genge is explosive elsewhere, but I was a scrummager. That was what I had really. And, towards the end that went a bit really. So there was a game. So I got put in for Sarries at 18 and played half the games that season and played, I left Sarries in my early 20s and I played well over 100 games for the first team, so I played a lot of rugby for them. Equally, I did tons of weights. I was benching shitloads, doing loads of pull-ups, playing loads of games, 5 shoulder reconstructions, So I played way too much rugby, is reality. And the players, we were really well looked after. We had great physios, but it's nothing like now. The conditioning's nothing like it is now. We worked really hard. We're really fit. We're in good shape. We were 120 kilos and there were lads with no body fat, 120 kilos, benching 200 kgs. It's not like the lads now are completely different specimens. They are improved, but it's like I see on Instagram, you watch Max Laheath or something, the Bristol prop and shit. There's no one like that. But, you watch these freaks and it's like, oh my God, so-and-so, this Tongan Thor, the Australian Tongan prop, was on Instagram the other day and it's like benching 200 kilos. It's like, mate, I was benching 200 kilos in 2001, Chief. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't worry about that. Like, I could...
You needed an Instagram.
Yeah, but it's like, it's not... I think it's the amount of work that players do now, the fitness and the actual overall ability. I think they're just light years ahead of where we were. But we just got thrown in and you played and lifted, got injured. And it's just a bit of bad luck. But then towards the end of my career, I'm playing a game against Northampton at the Rec. And we conceded a penalty try and didn't concede many of those in my career. And everyone has a rough day. But I remember being against, it was Sani Tongawiya, Dylan Hartley and Brian Mujati. They're a really good front row. Yeah. And we knew that they liked to shear across. We knew they worked that angle and tried to sort of fuck off across the front of me, move around the outside of the tight head. We knew that. And I remember once thinking, this isn't just about power. I'm trapped in this position. I remember being on the pitch and I thought, I actually can't do anything about this. I can't stop it. I can't stop it because my body won't allow me to deploy all of my strength. I just can't do it because I'm at this angle. I can't go any lower because my shoulder will dislocate. I can't bind any longer because my shoulder will dislocate when he bores in or the scrum collapses. Both my shoulders come out at any time. I remember thinking, I am fucked and I've got 2 years left on my contract. What am I going to do? And then started talking about double, bilateral, open, front and back surgery, full shoulder reconstructions before the next season. So I had 2 years left on full money, and then I smashed my hand and all the shoulder ops got cancelled. And it was like, mate, you've got nerve damage. You can't play anymore. And I was actually like, oh, thank fuck for that.
You talked earlier about the time when you sort of go into training, and I saw somewhere that you said you were shitting yourself on the way to training to Saracens. Is it true that Tony Dipros gave you a bit of a hiding?
I don't know if he gave me a hiding. I spoke to Dippy about this, but yeah, Dippy filled me in a bit. But it was basically like, so my first day of training. See, I did when I was 17, so lower sixth we called it, first year of sixth form. I did in the summer. The lads went on holiday, and I was like this young prospect sort of thing. And I did a full pre-season with the Saracens first team. So Michael Liner, Philippe Sella, Francois Pienaar, whatever. But they only had me running, lifting and running. They wouldn't let me do any contact because I was 17. But when I was 18, day one of pre-season was King of the Ring. Like, it's so aggressive. And it's a 1 metre square, so it's really small. You can barely both fit in it. And then they take it out to 2 metres. You can barely both fit in it. And my group was Phil Ogilvie, who you might not remember, was a massive freak. I remember he'd never done a power clean before. And I remember him he had 120 kilos on the bar, and he just picked it up and ended up with it there. He said, right, do I put it above my head now? He picked 120 kilos. He's like 6'5", 6'6". Picked it off the floor and just swung it out in front of him as he was talking. Goes, right, and it goes up above the head. We're like, mate, that's 120 kilo power clean, like it doesn't exist. And he put 140 on, and Oak didn't even know. He was unbelievably strong, massive. Hated Francois Pienaar because he was the same position. Francois Pienaar was made of iron. And my first day, 10 a.m. Monday after my A-level exams, was King of the Ring. And fight or flight, mate. And it's Oaks against Frankie in the first thing. winner stays in, and oh my God, they were just trading blows. And I'm 18 thinking, oh my fuck. So Francois got him out, and he's like, come on. And I was like, I basically ran in and just ducked my head, but nutted him really hard. It really got him. And he took it as an insult. He took it as but I got him out the ring because it made him made him his eyes move. And he got me back later on. But it was basically the first thing I did was headbutt Francois Pienaar in the face and then take a few punches while spear tackling him onto the floor. Like, I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And that's not bravado. I mean, I really was. And training, and one day I was on the pads with Dips and he was doing, I smashed the pad, and I just held the pad and my elbow stuck out the side and just smashed, as Dippy hit the pad, and smashed the elbow. Get your fucking hell on it. Yeah, you like the elbow? And I was like, what have I done? He's like, yeah, fucking yeah. And the next time I did it again, I was like, bang, and Dippy just speared me on the pad, because spearing was all right then. He speared me, and I'm like, bang, on the floor. I realise I've landed, and something, boom, boom. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, what's going on? And then Dan Grewcott was next to me, stood up. He goes, don't let him do that to you again. Don't let him. I was like, right, I'll kill him. So he came up on the pad the next time, and I was only 18, and I was like, Dippy was the king, captain of the club, and I was like, I am. So, you know, I wasn't like an animal, but I was I was up for it at least. You know, I was game. That's what I would say. I was like, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill this bloke. Like, it was honestly, I had so much rage and so much fire in me that day. I was honestly like, if he dies, I don't care. I'm going to hit him that hard. Anyway, Dippy hit me so hard that I remember now, I've never had a feeling like it except when Leota hit me so hard that my legs flew up in the air. And I remember, as I hit the floor, seeing my feet, my Nike boots in the air. I remember seeing it. And then Dippy just came down on top, folded me in half. And I was like, he didn't knock me out or anything, but it was like I would it's like I was in a washing machine, mate.
Yeah.
And the end of training, he's like, you all right? Yeah. He's like, tuck your elbows in, mate, on the pads. I was like, oh, is that what I did? Yeah. Tuck your elbows in. Really, because he had, you know, he was all black eye, whatever. He's like, good session, mate. Good session. 10 minutes later, we have a shower, and he's like, what are you doing for lunch? I was like, oh, I don't know. He's like, we're going to a sandwich shop. Do you want to come? Yeah. Oh, cheers. And like, Danny Grewcott was like, don't ever let anyone hit you and not hit them back. You fight in training, you know, and you've got to fight. And it was like, it's a great lesson because, you know, Dippy and I are very different players. Dippy was basically all talent, and I didn't have much, but, you know, I had a huge amount of respect for him because he filled me in because I elbowed him in the eye and then took me for lunch.
So you earned your badges then?
Yeah, you know, yeah, it's fine. It was fine.
Obviously, Saracens are a very different club now, and have been for a few years. Like, I think we talked last year about before, obviously, all the points deduction and the fine. Were you surprised when the news finally came out?
No, not at all. We hear stuff, but what frustrates me is this whole sort of Twitter generation now, where everyone's an expert. Twitter is that much of real life. No one's on it, you know. Like Chris Jones at the BBC, a journalist, a rugby commentator, is a great bloke, and we were texting about this a few months ago, and he crystallised it brilliantly in a text which I now can't remember. But he's like, you know, my dad's not on Twitter, my brother's not on Twitter, the bloke who just came to my flat to sort out my rat infestation is not on Twitter. The bloke who sorted out the boiler 3 weeks ago is not on Twitter. The real world ain't there. Like, it's not where it is. Except the people that are on there all think they fucking know everything. So people were saying, you know, why don't you say, you know? My point was, and people have been saying Sarries are cheating for years, until it is proven, you don't know, you think. You're defending Saracens. No, I'm not. I'm saying you don't know. You're guessing. You may well be proven right, but knowing and thinking you know are two very different things. So it's like this, you know, I'm a bit of a lefty myself, but it's like this left-wing mob presenting opinion as fact. And it's bullshit. And that really annoys me. So when it was proven, I have all these people saying, you told you wanker. And I was like, no. I never said they weren't. I said it wasn't proven. Till you've proven it, till someone's proven it, jog on. Because also, why are you having a go at me? I played for Saracens in 2002, and they paid me fuck all, mate. So it's like, you know, you don't have a go at me. I don't want people winning titles by cheating. But were we surprised? No, because, you know, look at the fullbacks they had, look at the locks they had, and there's just no way that you know, I felt like there cannot be, but I didn't say there's no way because I could have been wrong. You must always remember that you might be wrong until something is proven as fact. Is Nigel Ray the sort of bloke? What I would say is, and this is subjective. So this actually, what I'm about to say means fuck all, but it is what I think. Is Nigel Ray the sort of bloke that wants to deliberately cheat and knife other teams and doesn't give a shit and is no.
Yeah.
Is he someone who will push boundaries and try and be really creative in the way he does things to get an advantage? Yeah, he is. I think they did things. Well, it's now proven. It's not up to me. They did things that are called, in salary cap terms, cheating. Not illegal, but illegal within the salary cap. They're cheating. They're having stopped doing that, punished harshly for it. Do I love Nigel Ray? Yes, I do. Do I have mates that I love who I think have done worse stuff than that? Yeah, I do. Does Charles Bronson's mum love him? Yeah. I think worse crimes have been committed. But I think it was serious shit. And I felt personally that the punishment fit the crime, whether the crime was a deliberate and malicious one or not. I've known Nigel Ray since I was 18. I adore him as a bloke. I'm really good friends with his daughter, have been since we were 18. It's a nice story because Nigel Ray was like, right, my daughter, she's a year younger than me, Lucy, and she's like, right, this is her and all of her mates. They're all beautiful and gorgeous and lovely. Don't touch them, but be nice to them.
Yeah.
And we were friends for years and nobody was inappropriate. We would be on nights out. We'd be hanging out in our front room. When I was 19, they were 18, having dominoes night before training or going to crappy nightclubs in Enfield. And it wasn't inappropriate. We were all just great mates and we're still friends. And it's lovely. And the guys largely behaved appropriately. And the girls really respected that. So I love that family. But do I think Saracens, it's not what I think. Do I think the punishment is an outrage? No, I think it's about right, actually. Because whether I love you or not, you can't do things that no one else is allowed to do. And those trophies, for me, the whole stripping of trophies thing, it's like, well, I mean, if you want, you can't give them to anyone else. So,
no.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. They were there and they had the celebration and they were the best team on the day and all that. And they just the most wonderful team. I must say that I loved watching that team every time they played. I thought they were just inspirationally good. And that isn't all about money, but it just is a fact that if Steve Diamond could sign 11 more top-of-the-range players, Sale would be a better team than they are now. That's how it goes, but he can't. So I loved watching them, but they weren't doing it appropriately. It's the way it goes. But those titles for me will always have an asterisk next to them, and I feel sorry for the other teams. I feel sorry for the other coaches and the supporters and all that. But I must say, people get very worked up about it. I didn't get massively worked up about it. I thought, well, they've proven it now. Punishment's out there. Let's talk about it. Be honest about it and not start crying our eyes out.
And teams are sort of picking off the players now. A year loan, Nick Tompkins going to the Dragons and whatnot. Where do you see the future for Sarries? Do you think they'll just come straight back up and they'll all be forgotten about?
They'll come straight back up. I'm sure of that because their players are so good. Mind you, Ealing are going pretty hard. They're signing some really good players, Ealing Trailfinders. But I think what feels like it might well happen is ring fencing, and Saracens will be included in that group anyway. So, and there may well be room for another team. So you might find an Ealing in there or whatever. But I think I think that's more likely in terms of Saracens. I mean, I don't see how you dominate. It's easy because as soon as you say Saracens cheated, that's saying, well, they only won because they had those players. That is not, in my opinion, that is not the case. I spend a lot of time at most of the rugby clubs, more some than others because Newcastle's a long way away. We pay our own expenses, do you know what I mean? So I ain't going up there. No, but I spend more time at some than others, but a great culture when you're in it. And Chiefs is a beautiful place. Like, I love being at Chiefs. Sarries, oh my God. It's like people used to think what it'd be like working for Apple or Google or something. It's just like, oh my God, I wish I'd play somewhere like this. And that ain't money. That's not money. That's the attitudes in the building. That's talking like, it's almost like, this sounds really negative, but it's almost like a cult, except it's not superficial and it's not, it feels real and everyone's relaxed and, no one's crying their eyes out and thanking the Lord. It's actually, everyone is just really nice to everyone and really positive and they really believe in each other. However, it's not perfect. And I think there are cracks there. And because there are cracks everywhere, just like there'll be cracks at Chiefs, just like there are cracks at Sale, there are cracks everywhere. And it's not perfect because it's human. And it's humans pushing themselves to the edge physically and emotionally. So when human beings do that, there's always going to be conflict and cracks. And I find lots of stuff interesting, like Mark McCall is someone for whom we all have a huge amount of respect. But it's this odd thing where I've been watching from the outside, thinking he's done a wonderful job there, created a brilliant culture. Brendan Venter started it off, but from the outside, I'm thinking he must have been something to do with all of these deals that were done. These are all highly intelligent people. And I don't want him singled out. It's just a name I thought of because I must say, I think he's a wonderful guy. But he must have known, but there's no association there. It's kind of like, well, Nigel Ray's been hammered for that. The CEO is hammered for that. Director of rugby, not really hammered for that. I don't want him hammered. I'm just saying I find that odd. So I just mentioned it to a couple of, I won't name them because that is not fair, a couple of Sarries players before lockdown, over the months, just chatting at the odd events. I do events all the time, a couple of times a week I'm with different players from different clubs. And I said, what about, and no one's mentioned Mark McCall, and one of them said to me, exactly, mate, exactly. He was at the middle of all these deals, no one's mentioned it. And then you're like, and he's a great bloke, I love him, but no one's mentioned it. And hopefully no one will. Spoke to someone else and they're like, hopefully no one mentioned. It's kind of like, so I think they're not selling him out, but I think they know that things aren't perfect back at the ranch. Yeah. So it was never perfect, but it was a wonderful environment. And that isn't only about money, it's about personalities involved. But I don't see how they become anywhere near as dominant without all the top of the range, without so many top of the range players. I really don't, because apart from anything else, less talent and more fatigue, really.
Yeah. And at Saracens,
I give long answers, don't I? The reason is, it's because I had this before I started. My girlfriend put me in one of these. So it was like, well, you're knackered, mate.
No, that's right. But before we move on, we can't go without talking about Tom Shanklin. And obviously, you met him at Saracens, didn't you?
Yeah, we lived together. That didn't go very well. But I met him at Sarries. I'd been there a year, and he joined. He joined, I think, when I was 19. We were 19, and we just got on because you do, don't you? Most lads in rugby teams get on. And we lived together for a bit in my flat in Stoke Newington, but we're so different that we actually got on, but much better once he'd moved back to Wales and whatever. And before and after living together, really, because I'm really sociable. I say hi to people. I don't just sleep from 4 PM till 9 o'clock at night, get up and have an omelette and go back to bed. Like, I'm not a soporific loser, basically. And I'm sociable. But Shanks, I've known Shanks for 22 years now, I guess. And lockdown's been an odd one because we don't see each other that much. But I see Shanks probably twice a week as normal and speak, text at least every day of the week about work stuff and barbecues and life and shit. And there almost wouldn't be a week where I haven't pissed myself laughing 4 or 5 times in a week in the last 20 years. Like, he's just the most inappropriate, dark, funny, sharp bloke. Like, I want to do a TV show with him, but it's just like, unfortunately, no one knows who we are. No one gives a shit. So it's like, no one's going to give us one. But I just think I want more people to know about Shanks. I think he's like an ace. But
it's great though, because whenever I've listened to Flats and Shanks, it is just like, because you hardly talk about rugby on Flats and Shanks, don't you? So
no, deliberately,
when I'm listening to it, it's just like a bit of an escapism. So when you're listening to it, it's like, it's just two guys here, two good mates talking about stuff. And there's things that make you really piss yourself that some people wouldn't find funny, but you two sort of get it. Do you get what I mean? It's so, it's like you're the third person in the conversation when you're listening to it.
Yeah, and, we like our podcast, and we only started it really, so our agent sort of pushed us into it. But we'd started doing podcasts before the other lads started doing theirs. Yeah. And and it went reasonably well. And we got offered. Someone offered to buy it. People offered to take it over and produce it properly. We don't produce it. Shanks just does it all. And offers to build us a studio in London, then in my house in Bath, and someone else offered to build a studio in Cardiff. And we're just like, nah, we meet the services, mate. It saves on diesel. And it's like, I can't be asked driving an hour every Monday. An hour there, hour back. We could just do half an hour each and meet the services on the M48 and get a Costa then, get a Cortado then. Cortado's is there. So you're like, and then it's like, oh, let's do that. It's easier. Yeah, it's less money though. I don't give a shit. It's like I wanted to do something with Shanks, but I also wanted to do something that wasn't just about money. We've got sponsors and stuff, but it's peanuts really. The grand scheme of things, ain't going to pay for anything. But it's like we got offered more money, we got offered a buyout and whatever, and it's just like we do this. The reason I like it is because in season, say it's every Monday, that is a day that I give over to something that I enjoy. And I'm not asking what's the fee, because my whole life is asking what's the fee, and putting people in touch with my agent and her saying, oh, they're only offering this, or they'll offer this, but you've got to do 3 dinners, and which is fine. That's my job, and I love it. I really enjoy it. But I did feel, do you know what? This bloke sent feedback email about our podcast quite early on. I forget what it was. And he said, you two talk about money too much. Flats talks about money too much. I think you've got an unhealthy relationship with money. And you'll read this and you'll think, piss off, what do you know? But I think I'm right. And I read it and thought, I think you're right. I think I've been so worried since I retired about money and not having enough and whatever, that everything's become about what's the fee. So, and it was quite soon after that someone came in and said, we'd like to give you some money for your podcast, and then we'll pay you this much a week, we'll build you a studio. We'll have a producer, you'll have a running order, you'll have AV, and we'll build a studio worth 80 grand in your house for you, in your basement in your house, and you can keep the kit forever. And we were just like, nah. Then I was like, I don't want to do it, but you got to do this, and this for it. And I was like, I think this guy's right. I think I've built this whole thing up. This fear of being skinned has got me into a fee, just basically a fee guy. What's the fee? Yeah. I like money like everyone else does. Honestly, that email had a real impact on me, and it was like, I want to do this because I like it. I don't want to do it so I can try and earn 10 quid instead of 9 quid off a podcast, because it's all peanuts. So it's like, in the grand scheme, so it's like, actually, I do it for the opposite of money, whatever that is. Just it's good crap.
I was just saying, we can't finish out talking about the Lions. You sort of had a bit of an involvement in 2017. Well, is it good that South Africa now are world champions, and is it made it a little bit more interesting for next year?
Yeah, I mean, the Lions is always interesting, but I think the whole Springbok story makes this the most interesting Lions tour for some time, actually, for obvious reasons. But there's talk about delaying it or pushing it back or whatever. But I'm really pleased because I'm not a Lion. I wasn't good enough to be a Lion. But I'm a massive Lions fan, and I grew up loving those series and, just watching Keith Wood, basically. And I love all that. So I think it's actually great for the brand that South Africa did so fantastically at the World Cup. And I think the whole thing, it's going to be great for world sport, but it's going to be great for South Africa, almost more importantly, because of, Siya Kolisi, this wonderful, talented, heroic, intelligent, erudite, gentle, sensitive black leader that they've got. I think this guy just couldn't be any better. I did an event with Francois Lowe after the World Cup, and I said, but he's talking about Siya Kolisi, and I was like, he's not even that good, is he? Trying to get Francois Lowe, trying to stitch him up. He goes, no, he's really good. Yeah, but he's not a great guy, is he? Like a bit of a bully, isn't he, behind the scenes? No, he's really nice. Yeah, but he doesn't like the piss. No, he's great at a party. Yeah, he's brilliant. But he won't stand up to the coaches, will he? He's a yes man. No, he's not. He's really strong in his opinions. He doesn't train. He's like Richard Hill in the old days, mate. He won't train till Friday. No, he really puts it in. He's like stitches, broken fingers. He's out there smashing about. You're like, contact every day. I'm like, this guy's flawless. And he's like, mate, he's the best guy you've never met. You're like, and he's got everything. So I think that's a particularly wonderful thing for South Africa, but for, I guess, diversity and inclusion globally, really. And it's just sport's a small part of it, but people are hugely interested in sport. And whether, I don't want my children's role models to be athletes, but whether famous athletes like it or not, they have to lead. They are role models. And whether I don't want, I want my kids' role models to be me and their mummy and my dad, their nana and granddad, and their siblings and their friends and my best friends and my sort of best mates, my best male friends and their wives, and my best female friends and their husbands are amazing people. And I want them to be my kids' role models. But nevertheless, if sporting stars aren't role models, why are under 15s down the road playing football on a Sunday morning calling a ref an arsehole? Like, they're doing it because they copy. So that's kind of it. So they kind of are role models. And I think that the South African rugby team is a particularly strong group of role models at the moment. And I think they bring to the forefront this, it's like the Greta Thunberg thing. And, some people say, well, what she says can't be proved. What does she know? She's only a child. It's like, yeah, but what she does is get people talking about it. She had my kids at years 7 and 9, 7 and 9 years of age talking about climate change. My kids are like recycling now. And the Black Lives Matter movement has my children, who are now 8 and 10, talking about it. And that is it. That's what we want. And I think these things are great. And I think that, the South African rugby team is this beautiful, shining example of people from different racial backgrounds working together and actually not caring. Because the reality is, in rugby, there's the odd bad egg everywhere. But the reality is, in rugby, no one cares. Like, it didn't cross my mind when I was 18 and playing alongside Brendan Reedy from Samoa that this guy was any different from me. I mean, he was the chief and he was the boss and he was bigger and harder than me. But otherwise, it didn't cross my mind that Abdel Benazi, French Moroccan, or, the Fijians you play with, or Johnny Fa'amatuenu from Samoa. It doesn't cross your mind that these aren't your brothers. You're just in. And I think rugby is this flawed. It's definitely flawed. It's not as perfect as it likes to think it is. It's this beautiful environment. It's the most accepting environment. And, if someone comes out as homosexual like Alfie did, so it's a massive deal for him. And to say no one cares in rugby is not quite what I mean. But the only people that think any differently of him love him a bit more. That's all it is, because he's been struggling. But no one, in the most beautiful way, no one cares. When Duncan Bell at Bath, I was playing, stood up and told the lads he'd been suffering depression and he was on medication and stuff, the first thing that happens is someone trips him up on the way out the meeting. So, smile, will you, Belly? Fuck's it. And then every time he catches a ball, oh, well done, Belly, giving him big cuddles and taps on the bum. He drops a ball, you idiot, you're nothing. Just smile, Dunk. And he loved it. And we all adored him. And he knew we all adored him. And then when he left the environment, he was like, I miss that. Because it is teasing, but it's like inclusive teasing. And it's not banter, because banter's the wrong word. It is love. And, if somebody is any colour, any religion, any sexuality, identify as what you want, rugby doesn't care as a rule, which is why what Izzy Folau said just sort of was just so, it felt so abstract. It just went against everything that we all think. And as I said, there's always your bad egg. And I think his views are his views. I mean, you are free. I think we are free to think whatever we want, but I think there are appropriate times to say some things and not to others, and in case you do damage to others and put people in uncomfortable positions. But I think the South African rugby team is this beautiful beacon for inclusion and diversity, and they haven't always got that right because they've had such a hard time of it there, that it's like, right, we have to have this many players of colour in our team, and it's like, well, that for me undermines it. But you have to, we as in people like you, Nathan, people like me, sort of basically white males, we've had it all our own way for so long, for generations, forever, that if there is a period of overcompensation in pursuit of diversity, not only should we not resent that, we should feel lucky that we are part of the generation that is trying to make a difference and is moving towards making a difference. So we should embrace it, not like, well, I should be doing that job. I'm better than her, or I'm better than him, or just because I'm white middle class male. It's like, yeah, you might lose a few quid here or there, but isn't this wonderful that we're part of the generation that has an opportunity not to rail against it and help it move forward? So I feel really pleased actually when these sorts of things happen, and then you get someone like Sia Khaleesi, and you're like, oh my god, this guy doesn't matter, if he's black or not, he's just bloody wonderful, and wish he was English, to be honest. He's just great.
It was special. It was special though when he lifted that World Cup. It was like beautiful. Obviously, I wanted South Africa to win because I'm Welsh, but just to see him lift that World Cup was it did feel like, because obviously me growing up, I wasn't born in '95, so. You see all these pictures of Francois Pienaar lifting the World Cup, and it's so special. And obviously, they made a film about it, and it's like, well, why wouldn't they make a film about this? This is for me even better story, because I think Wales, the first time they beat South Africa was in 1999, and then after that, South Africa would beat us so many times, and then I think Wales beat South Africa 4 or 5 times before the World Cup, and South Africa were in a bad place. I remember thinking 2 years ago, looking towards this Lions tour, this is going to be a shit Lions tour. Do you know what I mean? The Lions will beat them easily 3-0.
Yeah.
And now look at it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's fab. And hopefully someone does make a film. Although the films are never any good, is the truth of it. But
Matt Damon's about 5'5", isn't he?
Yeah. Do you know what as well? It's a funny thing. You say, obviously I wanted South Africa to win because I'm English. Because I'm Welsh, sorry, you said. I want Wales to win when they play. Yeah, it's this really funny thing. I always want Wales to win, unless they're playing England. But even then, I'm not that. I don't lose any sleep over who wins rugby games anymore. That's my other life, I just look at the performances now and talk about them a bit, or write about them, whatever. But I made a mistake during the World Cup in Japan of tweeting, why is it that we're all here cheering for Wales, and as soon as England lose, or as soon as the Welsh just destroy, just rip in, and the abuse, mate. I'm sure English people do it too, by the way. Yeah. The abuse was so relentless that I couldn't. And it was like, right, who do you think is going to win the World Cup final? And I thought England would win. So I was like, I think England will win. It's just what I think. It means nothing, but it's just a guess. I think England will win. If they play like they did in the semi-final, they'll win. They didn't. They lost. And oh my God, the number of messages that came in from like jubilant Welsh fans because England had lost. It was like, I think they assume that I'm really upset. I'd rather England had won because I'm English, but I'm there to work. Like, this is my job, and you're almost completely dispassionate about it. Actually, is the truth when you're there, because you're just thinking about what questions you're going to ask and how you're going to frame this, and don't miss it. Imagine if there's a hat trick you forgot to mention, or all this going. You're taking mad notes all the time and whatever. And then someone says, "I'd like to hear." In commentary, I'd like to hear what Flats thinks about these last couple of scrum penalties. Flats. And I'm like, shit, I wasn't ready for that. And there's 12 million people listening. Well, actually, since you've got to be ready. I was right. I was actually writing about kickoff receipts when that came to me. So, you've got to be ready. I'm not thinking about emotions and stuff. So these people think that I'm devastated. I'm not. We're devastated. We're not. But the abuse, oh my God. And I did said to Shane Williams once, I said, I reckon the worst abuse I get is from the Welsh. And I said, is the worst abuse you get from the English? He goes, no, mate, the Irish, they're the worst. All right. So it's all fun and games.
It is crazy, though, isn't it? Because, I remember watching Wales-Scotland. Do you remember when Wales come back against Scotland and Scotland were 24-14 up with like 5 to go? And you can actually hear Jonathan Davis in the background when the build-up to Shane Williams' last try going, go on, like that. And like, if that was Sir Clive Woodward or something, I just know it would be everywhere.
Imagine if that was Big Lol. And
Nick Mullins actually said, though, didn't he? He said that I think he was on a podcast recently, and he said he didn't give England the credit they deserved in that semi-final because he was trying to be unbiased.
Yeah, and it's nothing to do. That's nothing to do with being English. That's everybody. Yeah. So if Shane says Wales are amazing when we're commentating, he will get English people saying you're biased. But I find it most at like Premiership level actually, where because I played for Bath for ages. It's like if I say Bath are great, you get people from supporting all the other 11 clubs saying typical. Why don't they put someone on who didn't used to play for the club? Typical bias. I'm like, okay, if I say Bath are crap, I get Bath fans hammering me, overcompensating. You're the new Stuart Barnes. All you do is slag off Bath. I think Stuart Barnes is one of the very best in the business and has been for a long time. And if Bath are really good, he enjoys saying so. If Bath are crap, he will say so, which is what I do. And it's like, I think they're crap. I will say so. Like I said to you, I think Bath have got a great pack, but I think 9, 10, 12 remains unresolved for me. Ben Spencer might be a great addition. But there was, so I think you just gotta. It's this weird thing because people say, "What would you do if you?" I love Twitter for many reasons. What would you do if you won the Euro Millions? One of the first things I did would be delete Twitter. I would delete it, and I'd probably go back on with a fake account and just read stuff and not post anything, because it's just these pile-ons and this cancelling culture. And the reality is, I'm nobody, but I'm less nobody on Twitter than someone who has no followers because they don't post anything. So you put yourself out there, and that's fine. I don't mind that. But there are people now, lots and lots and lots of people, who really, really want you to fuck something up. So they can come after you and show the world what great people they are by hammering you for something you've done. And if you've done something awful, well, you've only got yourself to blame. If you've made a mistake, or you think something that someone else doesn't think, or you've written something you probably shouldn't write, or you've missed the tone a little bit, boom, you are dead. And it is brutal. And it's not like it's brutal that, have a thick skin. It is horrible. It's really horrible. So I think Twitter used to be wonderful, and I think now it is largely awful, but I have to be on it. I much prefer Instagram. I have to be on it because work, really. A lot of stuff goes on, and frankly, I earn a lot of my living from stuff associated with social media, but I do despise a lot of it.
And you talked earlier about your love for Wales, and I think we've talked before about how you've gone into each of the nations' camps, and you can be in the Welsh camp and guest some of the boys for the podcast, and they're so laid back. What are the big differences, between the four nations?
Scottish and Irish, I'd have less experience with. My experience in the Irish camp would be really, the players were lovely. So you've got guys like Rory Best is captain and is in a bit of a rush. Cian Healy's got a lot to do. He's got a lot of interviews. There's no rush. There's no, right, let's get this done and leave. The media, I can't remember if it was a man or a lady, but the media person said, right, you've got 8 minutes with Rory. That's it, 8 minutes. And Rory was lovely. He wasn't dismissive of the media person. He said, honestly, I don't mind if it goes over a bit. And that's right, because Rory and I were chatting and said, hey, doing Flats? Yeah, all right, best, yeah. Remember this, remember that? Oh, we have a little chat for 5 minutes. And the lady was like, I think it was a lady, I can't remember. Guys, we've got 8 minutes. That's 4 left or 3 left or whatever. And Rory said, honestly, I don't mind. And well, no, you've got another interview after this. He goes, yeah, but that's with Derek, and he won't mind. I've told Derek I might be a few minutes because it's Flats and we might have a little chat. And it's literally like, that's just lovely. It's just lovely. And the media person's doing their job and they're completely relaxed. As long as the player's happy, they're happy, and say, cool, if you don't mind, take your time. And usually they sit in with you, and Rory's like, oh, you can leave us, it's fine. And this person was like, oh, brilliant. And nipped out to do a few other bits and just left you with the player. Then you go to Wales, it's even more relaxed. Gats, when he was there, was just like, yeah, do what you want, mate. Do you want to do a podcast? Yeah, we've got training at 3, finish about 4, so I'll grab a coffee. Do you want to do it then? And it's like 4:30's on there. How long do you want me to do? And we're like, oh, mate, as long as you want. So an hour later, it's like, probably finished now. He goes, oh, don't have to, carry on. Do an hour and a half. And he's like, do you boys want to stay for dinner with the team? It's just so easy. And I think that sports people are taught now to just fear the media, and I think that's absolutely the wrong way to go, because we need them, but they need us. I mean, we both need each other as much as the other. There are certain responsibilities on both sides, I think, but the relationship should be one of relaxed, relaxed in nature, honest, and Stuart Barnes commentated on a few games that I played in and said I was awful and whatever. He was right. Like, what am I going to get angry about? He's doing his job. I was in the wrong position. I got skinned by Luke Fitzgerald because I was in the 13 channel and it's embarrassing. I shouldn't have been there. Been there. He's right. So why am I going to hate that guy? It's like, he's wrong. He's not wrong. So I kind of, I forgot what the question was now, but I think there's a responsibility on both the camps, but the England camp is far, the England boys are great boys. Like, they're just great boys. Like, you're interviewing guys like Genji and Joe and Sink and those guys, and Owen's lovely, and Joe Launchbury's lovely, and these guys are just lovely. Marrow's a brilliant interviewee, and they're so intelligent and charismatic. But I must say, during the World Cup, I was really, really surprised by how little access we had as sole broadcaster, as friends with the players. They knew, it wasn't like I was some random. It's like we all know, and everyone knows the ITV. We're the only ones doing it on telly. And it was like, can we interview them? No. Can we go for coffee with them? No. Can we go for sushi with? We'd like to take Joe and Sink for sushi and coffee, and Jamie George, and you can come with us if you want and make sure it's all fine. It's just fun, something different. No. Can we go outside on the balcony to do an interview? No. Where can you go? This windowless room by the lifts. But there's 3 other interviews gone. Israel Dagg's interviewing someone right there, interviewing Willie Hines, and there's loads of noise. Can we not go upstairs? No. In the end, you've got to fight just to be able to go outside the French window to do an interview. And again, this is not the media people's fault necessarily, because it's all, do they feel comfortable enough to let the guys loose? No was the answer. And I was really surprised by that. And this is the sort of thing that if certain people hear it, they might not like me saying it, but I was really surprised by how little access we had to players and doing anything original with them. It was just no. And whether that came from the media team or from the top, I don't know. But there were days when, we wanted to go and do sushi or coffee or something, and in the end you get a 4-minute interview in a windowless room. Done. Home now. You're like, shit, I've flown out for this. I mean, I loved it, but it's like, with so many cool ideas, and it was just no. And I found that, compare that with Wales, oh my God. It's just like, see you in the foyer, boys, whenever. Like, Gats brought in, having a coffee, boys. He's not showing off. He's just a nice bloke, So I found that quite surprising, actually, but maybe it's just because I'm new.
Can we live down in the valleys, man?
Yeah, that's it.
Before we go, is it okay if we do a quick fire round?
Yeah, sure.
Right. Best player you've played with?
Can I have 2? Tim Horan and Nick Abendenon.
Best player you've played against?
Jason Robinson.
Best match you've been involved in?
Argentina, England in Buenos Aires, 2002. The week after Argentina crushed the French pack and beat France, and that was the same French team that had grand slammed it in the Six Nations, and we beat Pumas in Buenos Aires. That's my favourite day.
Best friend in rugby apart from Shanks?
Matt Powell, the Worcester Warriors scrum half, Danny Grucock, second row, and Ollie Barkley.
Best moment of your career?
Coming back from my Achilles injury, fat as a house, I think like 2005, 6, whenever it was. Could barely run, 126 kilos, big bench press, no fitness. But they told me I'd never play again, and I managed to. So that's probably the best day.
Worst drinker you played with and why?
Lee Mears. Just couldn't do it. Just couldn't drink. He used to talk about going out the beers. It's like, no, mate, you don't have any. You only have lemonades. And then one day we went to Glastonbury on Andy Beattie's stag do, and Mearsy had 3 pints, and we found him. He's meant to have gone home that night. He's gone on holiday the next morning. We found him unconscious in someone else's tent, having been sick after 3 pints. 3
beers, Mears.
Yeah, exactly it. Yeah, useless.
Biggest troublemaker on and off the field?
Oh. Probably say Andy Powell, but I didn't play with Powley. Troublemaker. Michael Lippman was pretty loose. Let's leave it there.
Best coach you played under?
Mark Bakewell, forwards coach, was brilliant for us. Michael Foley, exceptional. I keep giving you more than one answer. Sorry. One of those two, Foles or Bakes. Foles or Bakes were just outstanding. Brian Ashton as well was genius.
Funniest moment you've been involved with on or off the field?
Funniest by a mile is when I'm in the foyer of Penny Hill Park, the England Hotel. We're rookie, Julian White and I there, and we're best mates. And he's the funniest guy in rugby. I mean, full stop. There's no one funnier. And you just wouldn't know because you never hear from him. But we're in there, and everyone loved Whitey because he was just such a mute, and he's a hilarious bloke, but a proper antisocial farmer type, but brilliant guy. He walked in, and I was there with Clive was there. Clive walked in, he said, "Flats, how are you?" And shook my hand. I was like, "Hello, Clive, how you doing?" And then he went, "Whitey," and went like this, "Whitey," for a big handshake, like the cool handshake. And Whitey was like really formal and awkward. "Hello, Clive." and just held his hand out for a normal handshake. Clive's coming in from up top. Julian went for the middle, and in the end, Clive missed Julian's hand, and Julian just had Clive's thumb, and he just shook his thumb like that. He went, "Hello, Clive, how are you?" And his hand flapped, and I just fucking melted. I fucking fell apart. So I'm 20 years old, right? I'm a kid in the game, 21. And I'm on both knees. I'm on my hands and knees on the marble floor in Penny Hill, and I was screaming. Lawrence was crying, and Whitey folded. I remember Clive was like, he looked at me and said, "What the fuck is this?" And just walked off. I hardly got any more caps. So it was like, I spoke about it since. I was like, "Clive, I'm so sorry. It's just the funniest thing I've ever seen. What? Grow up, mate." And I was like, "I know, mate, but we all find different things funny." And he didn't. He was right. Clive was right. But when he had his hand, "Hello, Clive," like that, I just fucking went. I absolutely just went, and that was it. Game over. Then I was all day. I was just squealing. Yeah.
Finally, if you were never a rugby player, what would you have been or wanted to be?
I like to think I'd have done something noble, but I probably would have gone and worked in a bank and stacked loads of
War
cash.
Hero.
Had a heart attack. And moved to the country. I think I was going to Durham University to read English literature, and that makes me sound brighter than I am. I only got a B. Oh shit! But I was a good prop, so I'd get in anywhere. Honestly, don't know. Probably would have been a psychologist like my dad and my sister, because that's something that really interests me. In fact, the thing that interests me the most probably is human behaviour, and I probably would have gone down that route. I nearly did as a rugby player, but I basically got injured, and that took over my life for a year, and I was just about to start a remote psychology degree and just didn't do it. It was too lazy, is the truth. And don't regret it. I'm over it, but probably would have gone down that route, yeah. Well,
thanks a lot for your time, Dave. Great.
Thanks,
Cheers,
mate.
Dave. Thanks a lot. Ciao, buddy.